Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today for another live session. Today we've got Demo with Damir. It's safe to assume I'm Damir Derd from Speechmatics. I'm a senior sales engineer and I work very closely with our customers and partners to ensure that they get the best out of the Speechmatics automatic speech recognition solution, whether that's just making sure they're evaluating it properly or making sure that they can integrate and scale our solution. Today's session, luckily for everybody listening in, will only contain a few slides and the rest will be a demonstration of some of the capabilities of what we can do. A very quick overview of the agenda. We'll start off with providing a very brief overview of what Speechmatics do for the attendees not so familiar with us and the value that we can provide to you. We'll then talk about the demo environment so you can fully understand how it's all set up on my single host so you understand a bit more of the workflow. Thirdly, we're going to go focus on the demo where we're going to focus on 3-4 key items. And this should take about 15 to 20 minutes, hopefully not longer unless I get carried away. And then finally, right at the end, we're going to be able to take some questions. So during the demo, if you think you've got a burning question, just feel free to pop it in the questions box. Anything that we don't answer, we're going to follow up after this call. So like I said, most of the people on this call do know who Speechmatics are and the value that we can bring to your business and your certain use cases. But for anyone new listening today, first of all, we'd like to welcome you. And secondly, Speechmatics as a company, we make a really highly accurate automatic speech recognition engine. And by that I mean we're able to take the voice, natural voice that is, and we're able to transcribe it in a timely and accurate manner. And we can perform ASR in 2 different ways, which really very much aligns to your business needs. The first method of ASR is what we call batch processing or post-processing. And this is if you have a lot of pre-recorded data, whether it's audio or video files, and you would send these files to us. We would do the recognition on it and you would get the transcript back in one go. And to give you an example, batch processing can be found for lots of post-event scenarios where transcribed data can be used for things like agent training. It can be used for monitoring and surveillance, and it can be also used in certain scenarios where for strategic management reporting. For example, if you want to gain some insights to why the call volumes have increased over the last month and a half, for example. But we're also capable of ingesting audio in real time. And as the conversation's happening and we're doing that ingestion, we're able to provide you transcriptions as it's happening. And we call this real time. So people that don't want to wait for results and they want to start moving their business use cases to more a real-time solution, they would generally take our real-time engine. To give you some of the examples where real-time ASR is used, it's very much used in live captioning scenarios, voice bots, and even real-time analytics, just to name a few. To be the best in class ASR, we believe there are 4 main ingredients. Accuracy being at the forefront of all of it, I would say. But having an accurate engine is extremely important, and it goes just beyond looking at the word error rates. It's about being able to derive meaning from the actual transcriptions that you get. It's about being able to, accuracy for some customers is about always being able to transcribe some of the key words where they can go off and process other parts of the workflow. But accuracy is also about having great punctuation that can save you time in certain scenarios. Our partners and customers do lots and lots of testing and comparisons between Speechmatics and other vendors, some really big names, household names. And when these results are shared, Speechmatics is usually at the top when it comes to certain use cases from an accuracy perspective. We have a total of 31 unique languages to date, with Malay and Turkish being released quite recently. And we've started to take a slightly different approach to how we build languages. We used to have multiple variations of the English language pack, but then that would cause some really tough choices that our customers would have to make in terms of which English pack do they have to use to be able to yield the most accurate transcripts. So what we did is we were probably the first to market with this as well, but we created a global English language pack that was trained on a variety of data with native and non-native speakers with different accents and dialects. So it makes a choice when you want English or Spanish or the global language packs as well. When you want to do recognition, you don't have that tough choice of, oh, I need American English, I need British English, I need Australian English. It's just one English. And this really makes some of your workflows much more easier, and you don't have to add extra logic by trying to determine who's on the actual call. I'll give you one example. If it was an English speaker like myself talking to an American speaker, how would you as an end user or as a partner of ours know which one would give the best results? Thirdly is any context, and our language packs are really any context. And what this really means for you is that you can deploy across a variety of verticals straight out the box. You don't have to have a language pack that's for finance. You don't have to have a language pack that's for the media and broadcast industry. It doesn't really matter. One language pack per language for any context. And then finally, data control is so big. We speak to customers all the time, and it's not always possible to them to deliver products and services to their customers from cloud-based and SaaS-based solutions purely for data security issues, including privacy, sovereignty issues, and compliance. So we're able to deploy our engine as a whole SaaS solution. Alternatively, you can take the flexible engines that we have and you can deploy on your premise. And you can do that through Docker containers or virtual appliances. Like, you literally think about it, I can't move my data outside of my premises, but I can move the ASR to me. And a combination of all four of these is really valued by our customers and partners. Here's some of the use cases where you would find Speechmatics ASR to be a core component of. I won't cover all of these use cases that are highlighted here if you don't mind, but just know that ASR that we create works across all of these, and it's not a special ASR that we've kind of configured to the contact center. It's not one that we configured it for, I don't know, marketing analysis, for example. It's one engine that sits across all of these kind of use cases. And one of the other reasons I don't really want to go too heavy into the different use cases is because I'm going to start referencing them in the actual demo. So there'll be a lot of duplicates. Speaking of the demo, here is a quick kind of diagram of the workflow that we're about to see and how the demo's set out. Very basic. As you can see, there's maybe 4 components. I've been told that you should never do live work with animals, children, and demos. And unfortunately, on this occasion, I'm going to be doing a live demo for you. So fingers crossed that the demo gods are with me. But looking more at the diagram, starting from your left-hand side, you've got me. That's me with probably long hair. This is what the coronavirus pandemic has done to me. And so it's grew out a bit more. All what I've got in terms of tools is a headset with a built-in microphone. The third item from the left that you can see is our application. And this application has been solely designed for demonstrations. Speechmatics as a whole is very much a headless technology. We provide APIs for the front end. We don't really provide user interfaces because our partners, they generally want the power of the ASR, but they will integrate it into their apps, their user interfaces, their particular workflows. And the fourth component is once I talk into the microphone, the application will capture that audio and it will make an API connection to the engine. And then the engine will essentially give me transcribed text back and display it in that application. The application itself I'm just going to switch over screens so you can see it. So you should be able to see a green box right now. The application of itself is capable of taking audio from different types of media. First of all, we've got voice transcription. For our use case, it's literally being configured to take the microphone input from the device that I'm on, feed it to the Speechmatics engine. Nothing more complicated than that. The middle bit of functionality, the video and audio files, this application is actually capable of preloading some pre-recorded content, and we can stream that across to our real-time engine, and in return it starts to have that behavior of being able to display the transcribed text back. So you can think of it like maybe like a captioning use case. And then the third functionality where it can ingest audio from is a live audio stream. So imagine that you've got a website that's playing a bit of audio. It could be a conference call or a live webinar, quarterly earnings call, for example. You could redirect with something like loopback, redirect the audio from the website into this application, and this application packages it all up, sends it to the real-time engine. However, I mentioned before this is all going to be live, so I'm going to use the voice transcription feature. Everything that you now see on the right-hand side is essentially API driven. And it's the same API that you would be able to get a hold of. And there's nothing special that we've got that you as a customer or partner wouldn't be able to get. Just to give you a brief overview, we're able to do transcription in 31 languages, and we've got the different deployment methods to be able to create all these. Our API is very flexible in terms of allowing you to set a different latency for how quick you want a response. And we can enable things like punctuation, speaker change, and then right at the bottom, we've got the custom dictionary, which will be at the latter part of the demo. Unfortunately for you, I only speak English and bad English. So for the duration of this demo, it's just going to be English. However, if you want to try this out with any of the other 30 languages or 31 languages, you're more than welcome to do so. So first of all, we'll just start off by making a connection. So now that we've connected to the backend engine, you'll notice that when I start talking, you'll see that there's a textual response that we're able to output in the middle of the screen. It's worth noting, we've decided not to expose any of the additional metadata in the output with this particular application. However, the Speechmatics engine is able to provide you with lots of useful metadata, including timing information, confidence scores, end of sentence information, speaker labels, and much more. All this metadata can be used in slightly different ways, which is very much dependent on your use case. So imagine that you've got a lot of archived media content that you'd like to index and then be able to search across it. Well, our metadata provides you with some of that valuable timing information. So when you find that keyword, underneath the hood, you're essentially able to find whereabouts in the audio file that word was said, so you can quickly skip across to it. What you'll also notice while I'm talking is that there are some words appearing really quickly on the display. And as I continue to talk, every so often you'll notice that the white text changes from the color white to the dark blue color. The text in white is very quick and it's constantly changing as it's predicting the last couple of words, hence the reason why you see it change every so often. I'm not quite sure if there's a screen delay. I'm hoping there isn't, but the white text is coming out within 1 second, so really, really quick. By the way, these white text is what we call the partial outputs. After a short period of time, and in this instance, it's around 10 seconds, the text actually changes to the dark blue color, but at the same time that it changes, the text is probably more accurate and more readable. We also capitalize some of the words, and we're also able to add some of the advanced punctuation. The dark blue colors, the words in dark blue, uses our advanced language modeling, which essentially does a second pass to provide the best possible output within a certain time period. These final outputs that you see can be used by customers in different ways and for different use cases. So because the API is very flexible, it really allows you to decide, Speechmatics, I want you to give me a response no matter what within 4 seconds. And in the broadcast industry, for example, that do lots of live captioning before it goes on the television, we've been told by a couple of our partners that 4 seconds is what they call the sweet spot. So they would tell the engine, wait 4 seconds, give me a response. However, for other use cases that you may find in the contact center, if you're doing IVR, for example, or you're creating live voice bots, 4 seconds may be too long from a customer experience point of view. So they use this parameter in our API to tell the engine, go give me a response every 2 seconds. And we're able to do that. And as you've noticed, I'm actually quite quick at talking, but the engine's keeping up with me very, very easily. For the rest of the demo, I'm actually going to change the slider so we get a response every 4 seconds. So you can see every 4 seconds, it goes to the dark blue. I'm going to clear the screen there. And I'm now really going to talk about the punctuation, because whilst I've been talking, I can bet my bottom dollar that everyone has been absolutely fixated with reading everything that's been on the screen to see how accurate Speechmatics is. At the latter part of last year, we introduced a new feature called Advanced Punctuation. We believe this was a bit of a game changer in terms of how the transcriptions are to be read. Our Advanced Punctuation model has the ability to add question marks, commas, full stops, as well as exclamation marks within the transcription. And this makes sentences even more readable and is available for English, German, French, Spanish, and Dutch. I mean, we've all come across sentences where a comma would have made the sentence less embarrassing. And it's worth noting that this particular feature was a request from one of our valued partners who really wanted to enhance the output for their captioning use case. For some use cases, like transcription and transcription editing, having punctuation or really good punctuation that's fairly accurate can be a real time saver when you're not constantly having to go back and add punctuation to sentences to make them more readable. I mean, wouldn't you like this as part of your automatic speech recognition solution? And do you think that our advanced punctuation would speed up your editing process? Notice when I said that, question marks were put in the right places. I want you to also imagine that you worked in a contact center. After each call, you had to log all the notes from that particular customer interaction. And those notes would include things like next steps, any actions, anything that was of value that the customer said. Having the call recorded and accurately transcribed with really good punctuation, not only does it maximize the agent's time because they're able to speak to other people on the phone and not note filling, but the next agent that picks the notes up has a much smoother experience because they're able to make a lot more sense of them, especially if they're looking at their CRM. So advanced punctuation can really have an impact on the quality of the transcription. And in certain scenarios, you may actually want to restrict the type of punctuation that's in the output. So through the Speech API, you can override any of the punctuation marks that you don't want appearing in this particular transcript. For example, if I wanted to use the API to only show question marks and full stops, I can do that. I've got a punctuation override and it just makes a request through the API and our engine starts to behave differently. It's also possible to make the out-of-the-box experience for advanced punctuation be even more or less aggressive. So punctuation as a whole is very subjective, and I may want it to be really aggressive, so I can increase the sensitivity level and our engine will start to add more and more punctuation. Or for my particular use case, I may want less. That's perfectly fine. The flexibility is there, and you can just change that setting down a bit. I'm going to clear the screen once more, just for the next bit. So the bit that I really want to focus on right now is probably one of my favorite features that Speechmatics have. We call it the custom dictionary, and it allows you to add words and phrases specific to your industry, vertical, the market segment you're in, and it allows you to add any words that the engine may not have been trained on. Now, lots of our customers have specific jargon that they use, but our engine has never trained on that because that data is obviously private and sensitive to them. So the custom dictionary essentially allows you to add names, places, acronyms, abbreviations, specific company jargon to increase the likelihood and the probability that these words will be output in the actual transcript. I've kind of cheated already, and I've added Speechmatics at the point of starting this real-time connection. So every time I say Speechmatics, we're now able to get it correct. And we want our company name and our brand to be out there and correct every single time I say it within the transcript. But I haven't added my name. So let me give you a very quick example of the custom dictionary. So Damir Derd works for Speechmatics, and Damir Derd absolutely loves ASR. So name and ASR wasn't quite right, but we can fix that, and this is how. So I'm going to disconnect from the session. On the bottom right-hand side of the demo application, what you should be able to see is an entry box for our custom dictionary. Only because our application has a UI to input words, that doesn't mean how rest of our customers and partners use it. They generally have a word list preloaded and you send it as part of your configuration. But I'm going to add the things that we got wrong previously. So Damir Derd, it's a creation name, so I would actually expect it to be wrong. I'm also going to add ASR as an acronym, but we've got this additional functionality called sounds like, and it allows you to phonetically spell out this word as you would say it. ASR, that's it. This is how I would say ASR. I'm going to add it. And now I'm going to actually add a few more words so you can see how it can work for your use cases. I'm going to add triple D news, of course. Triple D news. Notice I've got a hyphen within that. And with the sounds like, it just sounds like triple D news, nothing more. I've not had to go to any online dictionary to get the true phonetic spelling. I'm also going to add some made up product names and services in case I got in trouble by anybody. But Giga Infinity, notice one word, no space, capital G, capital I. I would say it as Giga Infinity. I'm also going to add what I would think of as a product name or a device, TN250. But the sound like functionality actually allows you to add multiple variants of saying the same thing. So I would say TN250. Comma separation, I can also add TN250. Different people say things in a different way, but the point is what I want in the transcription is have to have 2 capital letters, 3 digits, no spaces. That's what works for me. So really think about some use cases if you're in a call center and you've got lots of product names and services. How can the custom dictionary help enhance this? And I've got a word here for the finance industry, which I can barely say, but I'm going to go for it. EBITDA. And I've just got a couple more words, so just bear with me. ATM. So lots of acronyms, but it also works with other names. I just want to show you how you can really assist the engine. ATM. Notice the British spelling for T. And finally, we're going to do PPI. PPI. That's it. That is literally it. And when I now do start the session again, our engine is going to ingest this word list without any other information apart from the text. And now when I start talking, we'll notice that the word's going to appear on screen again, like previously. However, the example that failed before should hopefully work now. So Damir Derd loves Speechmatics, and Damir Derd especially loves ASR technology. Notice how my name and ASR came up correctly. They're the things that matter to me and my use case right now. And we've changed the engine's behavior by being able to kind of change probabilities of the likelihood of these words coming out. But if I now think about some actual use cases and scenarios, if you think about the broadcast industry, what you can actually do is preload some of these words and phrases before you go live on air. And as a news reporter, you can get the news reporters' names, you can get the news channel they're reporting for, and you can even get some of the current topics that they'll be discussing in that channel. By the engine being able to get some of these words correct ahead of time, it actually means that our customers in the broadcast industry have less mistakes that go live, or they have less work to do in terms of modifying that transcript, so it's a certain level of accuracy for their use case. So I've added some of my words already, so let's see how it performs. Hi, this is Damir Derd reporting live from Triple D News outside my home because the pandemic caused by coronavirus has locked down Britain and the rest of the world. So right there, my news network was correct. We've got the coronavirus, and we've also got my name. But now go beyond just an introduction. Go to the next thing of what this person will be talking about. Think about the politicians that they'll maybe be discussing and everything else. So it's a real time saver, and we're actually able to make some of our partners in the broadcast industry just a lot more autonomous, where they're not having to edit as much of the stuff. I'm going to clear the screen once again so it's not too blocked up. But another example, and I want you to imagine that you're in a contact center and you're looking at a new use case where you really want to be able to assist the agent with documents and articles to be able to help them resolve customer issues much quicker. So adding relevant product names and service names can greatly improve the recognition output, and therefore the engine that's looking through the transcript to pull up all these different documents to assist the agent is a lot more accurate. Now, that really helps the agent as they can focus on the things that they care about. They can answer more calls. The customer's not hearing all that kind of stuff on the actual demo or on the actual phone, which can actually be really frustrating. So it's like a change of behavior, but imagine a customer rang up about Giga Infinity service and they were using the TN250 device or the TN250 device. Notice how on the second occasion, the TN250, it came up correctly and my service name as well. So this is a real time saver from the agent's perspective. It reduces the call times by quite a lot, so it has a direct impact on some of your cost. A massive direct impact, especially if your agents are spending the time searching for products and services like Gig Infinity and TN250 that don't actually exist because I've just made them up. But you get the point. This is how powerful the custom dictionary is. And the final bit that I'd really like to show you for the custom dictionary is if we look at the vertical like finance, for example. The finance industry has a lot of jargon that not everyone, including myself, fully understands. But that's kind of common across all the different use cases. So the custom dictionary can really help here. My CEO, he often tells us how well our company is doing, even in these difficult times. And he uses the term EBITDA quite a lot. I noticed earlier on when I added EBITDA into the custom dictionary, we've now made it a lot more accessible. But EBITDA, which I struggle to say, apparently means it's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So the custom dictionary really works well with things like acronyms. And here's another quick example. I went to the ATM and I wasn't able to withdraw any funds. You can see ATM is underlined. We've kind of got it correct, which is brilliant. But in the finance industry, we've got a lot of compliance related use cases that companies are coming to us for. And businesses are really now wanting to protect themselves by having transcriptions for every single interaction that they have, especially in the call center side of it. And they want accurate transcriptions, so from a governance and compliance point of view. It could cost billions if they're not compliant in any way, very similar to the PPI claims. And to this day, I'm sure we still get PPI related calls. In fact, I get one every few weeks. But if you notice, we've added a few words. You can expand on this word list, and now we're able to get more financial related words correct. So this really works across all industries and across all types of specific jargon. The combination of the custom dictionary and sounds like, I think, is truly powerful. And this is why Speechmatics can be deployed in so many different scenarios. And like I said before, creating that custom word list is nothing more complicated than providing a list of words and passing it through at the point of making an API call. This is the end of the quick demo of the highly accurate Speechmatics ASR engine presented by Damir Derd. It's question time. So we do have a couple of questions that have already been sent to us. So let me just get them up. So feel free to start asking questions in the GoToWebinar box, and we'll try and answer as many as we can today. Anything we don't answer, we're just going to follow up after this particular webinar. So just to get started, there was a question that was pre-sent. Can we do time stamping as per client requirement? Yeah, I mean, we're able to provide lots of valuable metadata for each transcription that we do. And for timing more specifically, we can add a start time and an end time on a per word basis. There's also been another question about, is it possible to run Speechmatics without internet access? Yes, not a problem at all. We have customers that have some really secure and locked down environments and that have got no internet access whatsoever, and they add our engine within their kind of perimeter. And one final one, and then I'll go into the live questions. How can I use the custom dictionary feature for the upload of audio and video files? So as you saw when I made an API request, I literally had a word list, and we send that as part of the configuration. It's the same configuration that you would use to enable any functionality that we have, whether it's speakerization, output locale, metadata tracking, whatever it may be. You combine this word list at that point. So it's quite straightforward, and we've got plenty of examples if you'd like to see it. Why isn't this webinar being captioned? Thank you. Because I actually thought I'll do it live. By all means, once we have the pre-recorded session, I believe our marketing team will use a Speechmatics engine to do the recognition, and then we can capture it for later viewing. But I hope that the demo was sufficient enough where you saw as much live as you could. Does it work well when you dictate very short sentences or vocal commands? So our engine as a whole, we train more on natural language. And so we don't actually train our models to be very short utterances. We like natural long speech, hence the reason when I was talking and we were constructing that sentence, our language modeling kicked in and we were able to be fairly accurate. I mean, we're not going to be 100% accurate. Let's be completely open and honest about that, but we still do really well. And in terms of vocal commands, if you mean things like dictation and saying pause, command, insert comma, that's not part of our use case. As you saw, I didn't have to do any of that, and we were able to apply the punctuation in the right place and the capitalization in the right areas as well. What is the speaker change option? Do you support multi-speaker speech recognition and diarization? The speaker change option is for our beta feature, and speaker change essentially in the real-time engine, it thinks it detects a speaker change. It was only me talking, so it might be a bit useless, but think about scenarios we've got multiple speakers. It thinks there's a change and it just sends you a token through the API to say, here's a timestamp, this is when we believe a speaker has changed. Multi-speaker speech recognition and diarization more specifically, we're able to do that with our batch processing. So if you've got that pre-recorded content, if you run it through that engine, we're able to add, do the transcription, add the metadata, which it tells you like the speaker labels for the segments or for the word that each person has spoken. Can I identify? So this is very similar to the previous question. Can it identify, Mark, unique speakers in a conversation, e.g. person one, person two, taking turns speaking? Yes, with our speaker diarization, once again, it's available through our post-processing system. If you're actually in the contact center and you have recordings, media files with multiple channels, you can actually use another feature called channel diarization. And so we can actually label the individual channels. So you get that kind of perfect diarization if it's one person per channel. This one's quite a long one. How large can a custom dictionary be? So we have a very much a soft limit of 1,000 words of phrases. I say soft limit because if you go above it, we don't restrict it, but we advise you not to do it. One of the reasons for that is if you go too much, you're adding words that are possibly not in the right context in terms of how we train. So there could be a time where it gives you a false positive, for example. So 1,000 is probably the limit that we'd advise. Going forward, we've got other things on the roadmap where you can adapt the models a lot more. I don't know if somebody from my team wants to give me a thumbs up in terms of how many more minutes I've got to answer these questions. I'll do one more till I get that. Is it possible to provide custom dictionary entries without pronunciation? Yes, certainly. You saw the example with Speechmatics. I just added that as a word. I added Damir Derd. Generally, our engine there, the magic behind it is we know how to break these words down and we know how to start matching them to sounds. Where you'd want to add some of the pronunciation is when it comes to things like acronyms and abbreviations or names that sound the same as something else. So you just want to give that extra bit of help. Okay, we've got a couple more minutes for questions. Yeah, we can distinguish between different speakers. Can it be integrated with a cloud-based phone system? Can it be integrated with a cloud-based phone system? And can it be set to start with each call without logging into the Speechmatics screen? Yeah, I mean, certainly lots of our partners are in the contact space where they have cloud-based solutions. They initiate these calls, and what they're doing is sending that audio stream to our engine. In terms of the actual seeing the Speechmatics screen, like I say, we don't actually provide user interfaces, and lots of our partners, they don't want it anyway. They have their own user interfaces and everything else where they just use the API, here's the audio, give me that valuable information back, and that's generally how they do it. Can I change transcription language, please? I could if I had one, if I could speak another language, and second of all, if I had the other language on my local machine. Don't forget, I've only got limited resources. But by all means, if you want to reach out to us after this demo, we can set something up with other languages. You can even give us some of your files ahead of time, and we'll run them through for you live if you'd like to see it. Is the dictionary uploaded every post? Yes, in a nutshell, this is very much automated by our customers. Like I said, just think of the word list as part of your configuration, and that configuration would have things like speaker diarization, how you want to enable it, punctuation overrides, output locales for your different types of spelling that you want output, and then that word list. Generally, our customers have the same configuration that they just keep on posting to us. I've not seen lots of our partners constantly keep changing these words. They generally find the words that they're missing, they add it into this word list, and in the background, when you make that API connection, it's just there. Can you load, and this is going to be my final question, can you load 100 words into a list for the custom dictionary or only one at a time? No, I mean, it's at the point of API call and you can do up to 1,000 words of phrases. I'd really like to thank everybody for your time right now. I do have to stop, unfortunately. I know there's a lot more questions. We will answer them all, and then we'll be able to reach out to you with some of these answers. So thank you very much for your time and for joining us today on episode 1. Stay tuned for what's next. Thank you.